How's it going, everybody? I hope you're having a really good day. I've been thinking a lot lately about the idea of shadow work and about the concept of individuation, which is a term that Carl Jung used to describe the process of how we become fully integrated, fully realized human beings. And in order to go into it, I kind of have to go back a little bit just to set some context. I mentioned previously that I grew up in this little town called Dixon City, which is about 7 or 8 miles outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And when I say little, I think the last time I looked it up, there were about 6,500 people there, give or take, and there probably weren't that many more when I was growing up. In the center of town, we had a community pool, and I swam there all the time. It was about 1.5 miles from my house, and even when I was 9 or 10, I could walk there. It was a really safe place to grow up. And there was a kid named Lee who lived across the street from the pool. Unlike me, he was an only child, and so one thing led to another. We struck up a conversation one day. I don't even remember about what, but anyhow, I remember going over to his house for lunch, and that was that. We became really good friends. In fact, we were like brothers. A lot of times, one was never there without the other. And we were at each other's birthday parties or showing up at each other's houses if our families had to go somewhere. It was that kind of thing. So Lee and I had a lot of common interests. Science fiction, comic books, monster movies, Ultraman. If you're from the area, you might remember Mad Theater and Horror Theater on Saturday mornings with Dr. Shock. We never missed an episode. But our one true love was Star Trek. When we weren't watching it, we were playing it. He was Kirk, I was Spock. And there was a company called AMT that made Star Trek models at the time. And one of the things that they put out was called an exploration kit. And it had models of the phaser, communicator, and tricorder in it. So of course we had to get those, and we did. And inside the box was a coupon for a nylon zip jacket that had the Federation insignia on it. So we ordered them too. And come Saturday morning, we'd put on our jackets, grab our gear, and go tear-assing around the neighborhood playing Star Trek. The schoolyards, the cemeteries, the creeks, the fields, abandoned buildings sometimes, if we could sneak in. Those were our planets. And my mother used to yell at us because we had these little round niche mats on our kitchen chairs, and I would untie them and we'd throw them down on the floor and we'd stand on them. Those were our transporters. And then we'd take those mats outside and we'd throw them on the ground in the grass and the dirt in a puddle. And that's how we'd beam down to the planet. We'd have a good time. So this is the original series that I'm talking about. And that original series was known for taking on deep sociological or psychological issues of the time that a lot of other programs didn't deal with. And that's really what kind of set it apart. And there was this one episode called A Taste of Armageddon, where the Enterprise blunders into this interplanetary war that's been going on for generations. And the war's not fought with conventional weapons, it's fought with computers. Random lists of casualties are generated, and then the people whose names show up on these lists are required to report to these disintegration chambers. And this was a solution that the two planets came up with, rather than destroying each other and wiping out each other's societies with conventional weapons. Towards the end of that episode, there's a discussion between Kirk and a representative from one of the planets. And that representative, his name is Anon 7, tells Kirk that killing is an inherent part of their existence, that their own long war has proven that, and that even humanity has a violent background. And there's a quote that Kirk issues, a thing that Kirk says, that really seems to cut to the heart of what shadow work is about. He says, all right, it's instinctive, but the instinct can be fought. We're human beings with the blood of 1,000,000 savage years on our hands, but we can stop it. We can admit that we're killers, but we're not going to kill today. That's all it takes, knowing that we won't kill today. And what's important about this is Kirk isn't talking about pretending that we're not killers, about pretending that we don't have these darker impulses. He's talking about acknowledging them and doing what we can to rise above them. Every single human being that we will ever meet, ourselves included, has the capability of doing harm. We can cheat. I have. We can lie. I have. We can steal. I have. And we can act in a way that can bring pain or grief to others simply for our own benefit. And I've done that too. And as we get older, if we're lucky, if we're brave enough, strong enough to look at these things from our past, to really, really sit with them and to examine the consequences as we look out at the wake that we leave behind us through our lives, we begin to realize how we've affected others. And sometimes the desire to make amends comes about. Not everybody wants an apology. Sometimes our apologies are good, true, honest things. And other times we just want to be left off the cross. But nobody can really do that for us. That's something we have to do for ourselves. And so what's left then is what's referred to as a living amend. Looking honestly at what we've done, the effects of our actions, and deciding, I will not do that again. And doing our damnedest not to. It's also important to remember that when we examine these darker parts of ourselves, they're not the enemy. These behavior patterns, rage, maybe bullying, bigotry, cheating, lying, whatever the case may be, a good deal of the time, these are born out of the environment that we grew up in. Sometimes, when you live in a house that's torn apart by dysfunctionality, emotional, physical abuse, or worse, you have to learn how to survive. You have to learn how to stay strong. And there is great strength in these things. When I was in my late teens, my early 20s, there were some people who wronged me. And I hated them. Absolutely despised them. I remember saying to a friend one time that if any of these people ever died, the only reason I'd feel sad is because they weren't around for me to hate anymore. And I would think about these people again and again, and I could feel a fire run through me. And that fire kept me strong. And it felt good. And it was good. Or so I thought. Ultimately, what I came to realize years down the road is that that was really only emotional cutting. And that all of that hatred was not about them. That was just the outlet. That hatred was something I carried inside as a way of overcoming the shame growing up the way I did. When you live in a house where there's alcoholism and emotional abuse, it's not an easy life, especially in a small town where everybody knows who you are and everybody knows who your father is. And a lot of people have seen your father staggering home and falling in the street. You learn shame, and you have to learn how to survive. There is a great deal of gifts that come from these darker parts if we're brave enough and strong enough to walk into them and to heal them. First of all, they can keep us humble. If I can honestly admit that these things are inside me, then I know that I am no better and no worse than any other. And that also helps me avoid things like righteous indignation and judgment of others for their flaws. Those of us who work with others, who hold space for others on a routine basis, also learn the ability to do just that, to sit with others, to hear their story, to walk with them through their pain, not take it away, but to sit with them, to help them as we're called, in a way that makes them feel safe, and makes them feel heard. And the other thing, the other gift that these things can bring to us is a deeper understanding and a deeper awareness of our own behavior. If I know that I can lie, if I know that I can lash out in hatred, or maybe violence, as some do, if I know that that capability is within inside me, but I choose not to do it, I can begin to see just how far I've come. And so the very overcoming of these things is perhaps one of the greatest gifts that they bring. It's not about cutting these things out of ourselves and becoming unbalanced, losing the strength, the awareness that they bring. It's about looking them in the eye as honestly, bravely as we can, and accepting them. Until next time.